When you sit and think about it, like I came from
Yes.
Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One and what he represented to the hip hop community. Tupac, like Kevin, your relationship with Pop, bruh, like that's crazy.
It's a direct result of this show.
Well, 3 of the 7 strangers who started it all join us now. Eric Nies, Heather B, that you heard there, and Kevin Powell. Welcome to the show. Okay, I was glued to my seat, me and my husband, because we are around all the same age. So I remember watching you guys just change the world. But Eric, spoiler alert, we talk about things getting real. You got COVID and missed the reunion. Well, at least in person. What happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I got COVID and I like 50% missed the reunion. And it was really emotional and shocking at the time. I was probably somebody who thought that I wouldn't get COVID, but that changed pretty quickly. So yeah, it was emotional and a little upsetting that I didn't get to sit with everybody and be able, to share in these deeply emotional conversations that took place, in the physical form.
Well, Heather, but that's the essence of the show. As I said, 30 years ago, you all ended up in that same house to deal with what was happening in the real world. Now, COVID is a part of our real life existence. And so you had to address that head on in this reunion.
Not only did we have to address it, Tamron, but it was absolutely shocking. In the first episode, when you see Eric pop up on that screen and say, "Guess what I have?" my heart sank. I have lost family members, and we all know people who have suffered from COVID-19. And to see our brother say that, and it was just shocking. I didn't even know how to react. It was like for the first time ever, I'm seeing my 6 friends, and I was speechless when he popped up on that screen.
You guys dealt with that. Again, I don't want to give too much away. You deal with the real life that we live in now with this pandemic and COVID. And Kevin, obviously, the other real situation that will never go away is race and how we deal with each other. And that was a big part of the social experiment. And it ended up one of the most iconic moments from real world history was the debate that you and fellow housemate Julie had 30 years ago. And you pick up the conversation today. Let's play the clip. I have to tell you, watching that 30 years later and in the context of approaching the George Floyd death and all of these things, Kevin, when you look back at it with the life experience you have now and what was happening then, how do you process it?
Well, first of all, thank you. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and shout out to my brother and sister, Eric and Heather. I love you both.
Love you too.
We've evolved. There's a lot that's happened in our country since then. Folks like you have a TV show. We've had Barack Obama as the president of the United States, but then again, we have not evolved. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, many other people have been killed just in the last year. The explosion of Black Lives Matter. So a lot of the conversations that we covered on this show nearly 30 years ago are still relevant around racism, gender issues for women, homophobia, when we talk about our brother Norman, who's the first openly gay person on a national TV show. And so these were landmark things that we did in those 13 episodes. And literally LA exploded while we were taping that first season. But I will say this, because I think it's important, Tamron, Julie and I, we all love each other. There's no way you have an experience like that, the 7 of us, where we're uniquely connected for the rest of our lives. There was no one before us. There was no Cardi B, no Kardashians, nothing before us. That's connected us. And we've all had conversations. And one of the deepest moments for me with the reunion episodes is when I got on the phone with Julie's daughter, who's a teenager and who's actually a civil and human rights activist. Wow. And so it's almost like coming full circle since then, And so it's not just about Black people and white people. It's about all of us as human beings, no matter what the color of our skin. I'm anti-racism. Let me make that clear. But Julie has made that clear. She's also anti-racism. And so Black, white, brown, yellow, we've got to figure out a way to talk with each other and to listen to each other and figure out how we can go forward as a human race and as a country, because we know where our country has been because of the ugliness of the last several years.
Well, that's why the show resonated from the day that you all debuted as the original cast, because it made us think, what would we do, what would we say when faced with people so different? And in this case, you happen to be in an amazing apartment in Soho, New York, which is now valued at $7 million, fun fact. We're going to have more with the original cast of The Real World after the break. with three of the original members of the very first Real World. They have a big homecoming show following life then and how they see it now. Eric Nies, Heather B. Gardner, and Kevin Powell. Eric, you know, at the time, I mean, listen, as Kevin pointed out, there's 100,000 reality shows that have spawned since then. But at the time, they kept saying social experiment. And then when you aired, people said, this is not real. No way that this is real. Eric, what did you think you were signing up for?
Well, I didn't know what I was signing up for. But after a little while, it realized that it was more of a spiritual experiment for me. I learned a lot of things about myself. I didn't watch myself on TV and share my life with 6 people that, you know, we didn't necessarily come from the same backgrounds, but I feel like I got along with everybody. I was always very interested in everybody else's lives, and it was just an incredible opportunity at 20 years old to be in New York and in that loft and have your lives taped to see what happens when people stop being polite. So we got to know what that was like real quick. And as you'll see in the next episodes coming up, some things have changed and some things haven't. But I think the thing that really does stand out is that we're all very present and aware to the fact that transformation and healing and awareness and being present in the moment to really listen to people and to, you know, empathetically really care about what people have gone through. You know, what is it like to walk in somebody else's shoes? And I feel we need that more than ever with this, you know, all this uncertainty and separation and division that's going on in the world.
Heather, at the time, you know, we were just looking at a photo of you guys on the red carpet. I mean, did the fame part of it surprise you? I know you'd been in the music industry, you'd been in hip-hop world, so you knew a lot of famous people, but then suddenly you guys are famous. You are being invited everywhere, and all eyes are on you. Were you at all prepared for that?
I don't think anything can prepare you for that type of exposure, Tamron. I was a little kid that I always admitted to my roommates. I used to be home as a little kid, signing my autograph with the brush and the comb in the mirror, practicing and singing. I've always wanted to be in the industry. However, think about it, Tamron. We were famous for being ourselves. It's not like we were coming off of a movie or coming off of a scripted show and somebody is calling you a character's name. They were yelling Heather because you were Heather, and they were yelling Eric Nies because he was Eric Nies, and they were yelling Kevin because he was Kevin. That's a different experience than playing a character, and you always have to be in character. So that was a little weird, you know. And I remember celebrities who Kevin and Eric and Julie and Norman and myself, who we watched, just like you, Tamron, at home at Washington Films, saying hi to us and we being introduced to them. Magic Johnson, I remember clearly waving to us at the VMAs, and we freaked out. We was like, oh my God, it's Magic Johnson. So we were as much as fans of people as they were of us, and I think people weren't expecting that either.
Well, Kevin, you know, when you got the invitation to come back, because you've gone on to your own great success being an activist and writer and all the things that you've done, was there any hesitation? Because sometimes, you know, like I've never gone back to my class reunion because
me either.
I'm just, see, that's the thing. I have this thing, I'm like, I don't know what to expect. So this to me, watching it was like y'all going back to the class reunion that I'm afraid to go back to 30-something years later. So what made you go back to the class reunion?
Well, I got to say this, and I want to say rest in peace to one of our directors, Rob Fox. He died a few years ago, and when he died, we started texting each other, the 7 of us, and just said, let's privately, quietly have a text thread, which is important. And some of us have been in touch. Like I'm so happy to hear my brother Eric and hear his journey as a spiritual leader. You know, Heather's journey she's got 3 radio shows and a whole bunch of stuff going on, you know. So we've been in touch in different ways with each other, but the 7 of us were in a text thread. And I think the agreement was, I believe Eric got called first and he texted me and I was like, really? We're going to do a reunion? And the agreement quickly was if all 7 of us should do it, and it's the only way we're going to do it because we had to come back together. And I want to stress again, there's no way you can have an experience like this. I agree with Eric. This is a divine experience. This is a spiritual experience. We may not have seen it like that when we were in our 20s, but now as older adults who've lived, who've traveled the world, who literally are bombarded with folks telling us what we mean to them now that the new shows are on. Because remember, Tamron, back then there was no social media, there was no text messages. So we're getting people testifying to us about the first 13 episodes plus the new episodes. And it's mind blowing. Wow. So spiritually, we had to come back together. Spiritually, we had to come back together.